Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for our webinar today. Today presenting for us is Ann Stelter. Ann is the president and owner of Stelter & Company, which is a leading national public opinion research firm that's located here in Des Moines, Iowa. Ann and Stelter & Company have conducted research for Stelter for the past few years, about 5 rounds of research, so very familiar with her work. And also presenting is Nathan Stelter, who is our Vice President of Business Development at Stelter. I'm going to go ahead and hand off to Nathan to start the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen, and thank you to everyone joining us today on our webinar. We're very excited to share the findings of our latest research project within this space of the plan giving industry. As Jen had alluded, we've done at the Stelter Company with Ann Stelter and her firm's help about 5 different research projects over the last about 5 or 6 years now. And most of those, for those of you that are familiar with the Stelter and some of the research we've done, have been around the donor space. And about 2008, we saw some changes, not only on the donor side of things as far as how folks were engaging with us around plan giving, what was working, what wasn't, what we could do better, and so forth. But we also saw some changes on the advisor side of the world. Jeff Comfort, who some of you may know, former director of Give Planning at Georgetown University, had given a presentation at the National Committee on Plan Giving Conference out in Denver back in 2008, specifically talking about losing a seat at the table from a development officer's perspective when it comes to those conversations with donors and advisors. And since that time, we've been looking at how do we best tackle this subject and get some insight into what's working and what's not working as a result of the advisor community and their relationships with donors and the nonprofits. So that's exactly why we're here today, and I guess one of the questions would be why now? Why are we now getting to this point and able to share this information? Partially, it's actually kind of a hard group to study. We've been fortunate over about almost the last 2 years to form a relationship with the National Association of Estate Planners and Councils Foundation. If you're not familiar with them, a diverse group of around 27,000 members. And it has been a terrific partnership for us to be able to execute this type of research, both for the benefit of the membership as well as benefit of our clients and nonprofits around the country. The purpose of the presentation today is really to look at a couple of different items. One is to actually look at the advisor population as a whole. We want to also look at, what are advisors hearing? What are they looking for from us as the nonprofit community? And what types of conversations are happening with their clients and our donors? And then finally looking at, what are opportunities for engagement and what tend to be, whether it's real or perceived, barriers for conversations or collaboration with the advisor community. From a methodology standpoint, our sample frame, we actually wanted to hone in on a specific audience, and we actually, through the 27,000 membership of NAPC, looked at this group here, the AEPs, Accredited Estate Planners. And really we wanted to look at this group for the reason that they're very highly accredited, and we sought to include individuals with more versus less experience with structuring these types of estate gifts. This is a population of around 1,700 individuals. And the sampling and survey actually went in 2 waves just this past summer and fall. We actually had a web version, an online survey, as well as a mail version and we were fortunate to have around 657 individuals respond, which actually is a 39% response rate, which anybody would be envious of from a response rate, especially from a hard-to-reach audience like this. This was actually, as I mentioned, just conducted. We conducted this through May 23rd through just August 19th of this year. And from a margin of error standpoint, given the great response we had with 657 people, we're about 3.8%. So if we were to do this study 10 times, 9 of those 10 times would fall within that variation of 3.8%. We've broken this down into a couple different chapters for you today, and the first of which is actually looking at the estate planner profile. And I'll hand that off to Ann here to kind of talk further about what exactly these folks look like.
Well, thank you, Nathan, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Nathan, and it's a pleasure to be here and to talk with your audience about the research that we've done. We've done several projects together, and this was really a unique opportunity to kind of get inside the mind of people who are working with clients directly on putting their estate plans in order. So we want to kind of begin by saying, well, who is this population? What did we find out? What do they look like? Well, they tend to look like they're male more than they are female. That's about a 6-to-1 ratio of men to women in terms of their makeup. They are also older. And again, because this is a very advanced accreditation that they've earned, this isn't terribly surprising that they would be farther along in their career. And you can see here the professional designations. They could answer as many of these as applied, and this really helped us feel secure that we were getting people with a broad range of experiences and expertise and understand how any of those might affect planned giving and the decisions that they make and talking to clients about planned giving. So what kinds of services are they providing, these AEP designees? Well, they're providing a lot of different services, and you can see that these are the most common things that they do. That almost 9 in 10 say they do estate and financial planning. That's not a big surprise. They're reviewing documents. They're doing insurance planning. Oh, and 62% are doing charitable planning as well. And so that's an important number to note, that it's a majority of these people who are engaged regularly in charitable planning, as well as tax planning, investment planning. On the smaller side, with fewer actually engaging in these, you can see insurance sales, investment sales, tax prep, drafting documents, and drafting charitable planning documents. So while they have exposure to and regularly work in charitable planning, actually drafting the documents is less a part of what they're doing regularly. So how much of their practice is actually involved in wills, trusts, and powers of attorney? Because they could be doing any number of things beyond those specific elements. And this was also really helpful for us to see that if you start at the bottom of this slide, it's only about 1 in 5 who say 75% or more of their practice is devoted to wills, trusts, and powers of attorneys. And it's a minority that would say at least half of their practice is involved that way. So while they are involved in this, it just isn't the majority of their practice. We wanted to know, well, what's their exposure in terms of the clientele that they serve? Do they tend to be, because they're at an advanced level of expertise, do they tend to work only with the very wealthy? And again, we were pleased to see that they had clients at all levels of wealth in terms of what they're putting together, so that 89% say that they have clients with net worth under $1 million, and you can see that they also have exposure to extremely wealthy people as well. So they're covering the gamut of that. The question we wanted to know right off the bat is, do you have experience with plan giving? And a full 96% said yes. So even though it's not necessarily a big part of their practice, 96% have experience. And that, again, it's just helpful to know that this population is knowledgeable and immersed in it. So what do they know about plan giving? What kinds of mechanisms are they most familiar with? And for each of these on your screen there, with one exception, at least 80% are reasonably knowledgeable about each of these mechanisms. That exception was charitable bargain sale, where fewer than 80% said that they were reasonably knowledgeable about that. We also found, with just one exception, that no more than 20% consider themselves experts. That is, they're reasonably knowledgeable, but they're not willing to claim that they're experts. And this is the one area where more than 20% said, oh yeah, I consider myself an expert on that, in naming a nonprofit as a beneficiary of a life insurance policy. So also helpful to know is, where do they turn for technical information? And the answer most commonly cited is that they turn to professional colleagues, that this is an area where people talk to each other, people rely on each other. They go to people who do have greater expertise than they have. Are they involved with plan giving at a personal level? Well, in fact, almost half of them, 48%, said they already have a planned gift in place. And another 10% said they will definitely do so. Another 13% probably do so. Might or might not 13%, probably not 7%. It really looks to me like a population that is not just planned giving friendly, but planned giving active. Yet, it's not a common thing for their clients to do. So just 4% say that 75% of their clients have put a planned gift in place, and just 7% say 50% or more. You can see that the most common thing is that it's fewer than 25% of their clients who have a planned gift in place. But we look at the top of the graph, those top 2 bars, that's 11% of our AEP designees, and we were curious about if there was anything that set them apart. We think of them as high producers. So we wanted to take a look at, well, what makes that group a little different from everybody else in our survey? The first is that they are more likely to be a veteran in estate planning. 77% of this group say estate planning has been a significant part of their practice for more than 10 years. And that compares to 37%. So 77% of this group compares to 30% of all others. In addition, a majority of this group say they devote at least half their time to estate planning. That's 55% of this group, and that compares to just 36% of all others. They show a broad range of experience. For every type of gift tested, they are more likely to say that this is common for their clientele. They are more likely to say that they serve high-value gift clients. So 47% of this group, that's almost half, say the average gift is $500,000 or more. And that's much more likely than the others at 27%. As I mentioned, we talked about different designations that they might hold, different credentials. 38% of this group were certified financial planners. That's a bit more than 25% of everybody else. This was really the only data point where we saw a difference. We had expected to see that attorneys might answer our questions differently from people who were certified financial planners. This is the only place where it really popped out. And then finally, they are more likely to have a planned gift in place. 69% of this group versus 57% of all others. So our second chapter is really to take a look at what the conversation is like in terms of the planned gift, of the AEP designees talking with their clients. What does that look like? And at the very basic level, we didn't know really if they felt it was appropriate to mention planned giving. Would they bring that up as part of the conversation that they would have? And 96% say yes, that they would definitely do that. And it's, if I break down that 96%, that includes 89% who say it's appropriate because it's an option the client can decline. And 7% say, well, some restrictions. It's appropriate, but there's a sense clients are sometimes uneasy about saying no. They think it's appropriate, but they're just a little bit uneasy, and that's just 7%. That leaves 4% who say it's either not appropriate because it may feel like they're forcing their clients to do something they would otherwise not do, or preferred not to answer that question. So who brings it up? Well, in fact, if not only are they comfortable with the conversation, they're more likely to bring it up. This 6% is the percent who said, oh, it's actually almost always the client who brings it up. 13% say it's mostly the client. So that's just 19% of our group. The rest of this are people who say they are likely to bring it up at least half the time. So 37% say it's about half and half. 33% say it's mostly me who raises the topic, and another 10% say it's almost always them who raises this topic. So it's a very strong indicator of their comfort with talking about planned giving. We were curious to learn from their perspective why clients decide to make a planned gift. And the most common thing they said is that there is a personal connection to a nonprofit that they have. That's 95% say that's a reason to make a planned gift. That they have no obvious heirs, that they want the income tax deduction, that they want to avoid estate taxes, they want to leave a legacy for themselves or a loved one. And then these last two are the only that it was less than a majority who said this is a main reason. 46% saying they've been asked by a nonprofit to make a planned gift, and 45% saying it's just the right thing to do. And I'll just note that last item, it's just the right thing to do at 45%. When we talk to donors directly, that's the most common reason that they give. And the tax deduction is the least common reason that they give, which makes sense. This is the business of these AEP designees, and so they're going to be much more interested in the tax part. But it's an area of education to help them understand the reasons why the people who put a planned gift in place think that that's the right thing to do. So what might be major reasons that their clients decide not to make a planned gift? And that includes they prefer to leave money to family, friends, or acquaintances. They have no personal connection to a specific nonprofit. They're just not interested. They don't want to disappoint family or friends who expect inheritance. They don't know anything about planned giving. They've never been asked by a nonprofit to make a planned gift, and they don't care about the tax benefits. And a couple of those really kind of stand out to me, that they have no personal connection to a specific nonprofit. That's kind of an opportunity. If 69% are saying that, there's obviously room in the market to do some more educating about relationships with nonprofits generally, because really only when you have that can you move into helping people realize what value there would be for them in making a planned gift. So our third chapter is a little bit more of the nuts and bolts of how planned gifts get put into place. First of all, we were curious about the average total dollar value of planned gifts in estates that they've worked on. 19% say it's typically $1 million or more, 11% typically $500,000 up to $1 million, 34% typically $100,000 up to $500,000, 50 to 99, and typically less than 50,000. You know, for a researcher, you look at this and go, well, that's almost a bell-shaped curve. I mean, that it's about in the middle between 100,000 and 500,000 is most common, but really it's all kind of over the board in terms of things being more than that and gifts being less than that as well. We were also interested about who they think is an appropriate client to introduce the topic of planned giving to. If they thought it was only the wealthy, obviously that would kind of restrict who they might be having the conversation with. Well, just 7% say planned gifts are really only for the very wealthy. 49% say, well, they're mostly for the very wealthy, but also for some middle class as well. 11% say mostly for the middle class, but also for the wealthy as well. And finally, that big chunk of 31% say planned gifts are appropriate at all levels of wealth. So we wanted to know a little bit, we've shown you this list before of types of mechanisms that can be used to put a planned gift in place to get a feel for what their clients are commonly doing. And I think we've shown you the list before, so I won't walk through all of them, but you can see that for all but two, it's a strong majority that of our AEP designees who say each of these mechanisms is a common way that their client might choose to add a charitable gift in their estate plan. The bottom two are that charitable bargain sale and retained life estate, which is less than a majority. But all of these other mechanisms they have experience with and feel as though they're common across their full clientele. How often do nonprofits, in their experience, remove a nonprofit from their estate plan? And this is confirming what we found when we talked directly to people who were engaged in plan giving themselves, who actually had a plan in place. Just 4% say it's common for a client to remove a nonprofit from an estate plan once a planned gift has been put in place. 63% says, that happens occasionally. 18% say it's never happened as far as they know. I think really helpful for nonprofits to realize is that the people who are working in estate planning are involved in nonprofit boards. So we wanted to know exactly, we wanted to quantify that for you. A majority of these AEP designees said that they are currently serving on a nonprofit board at the time they participated in the survey, and 31% say they've served in the past, though they're not on a board now. That's 84% of this group. Another 9% say they're not on a board and haven't been in the past, but they would like to be. And just 6% say they're not on a board, they don't want to be on a board. So in terms of cultivating relationships with people with these high-level professional designations, there is familiarity and certainly a wish to be part of the nonprofit world. Do they have relationships with nonprofit professionals who are involved with planned giving? In fact, 63% say, yes, I have those relationships and I consider them valuable. Another 20% say, well, I don't have those relationships now, but I would consider them valuable if I could figure out a way to establish them. And then just a minority says that they don't see how that could be a benefit. But for all of that openness, in an average year, there don't appear to be that many contacts between these AEP designees and nonprofit professionals in planned giving. That you can see it's most common for them to say, 33%, I've had 1 to 4 interactions with planned giving professionals in the past year. It just doesn't add up to a lot of contact, even as they say they find such contact valuable. So would they welcome collaboration? Do they want to get together and do more, working together with nonprofit professionals in planned giving? And in fact, 31% say they'd be very interested, and another 35% say they'd be fairly interested in that. That's 66%, 2 out of 3. 22% say just somewhat, but a very small 9% say this isn't for me. We're curious in the conversations that they have with clients if there is any reason they can think of that a nonprofit professional in planned giving would be excluded. When a client has expressed interest in making a planned gift, are there reasons that these financial professionals would say they'd rather not have a planned giving professional in the room? And the most common answer was to say, I can think of none. I can think of no reasons to exclude. But then there is some concern here. 39% are concerned that there could be pressure on the client that would feel inappropriate. 31% are concerned about client confidentiality. Just 12% say that planned giving professionals would offer little from a technical perspective. So it isn't that they don't see the potential for value. And just 7% say that they think it would slow the charitable planning process. So it's really not some of the things that you might think. But the net of people who said either that they were concerned about inappropriate pressure or that they were concerned about confidentiality, that's 50% of this group. So it's something to be aware of, that if there is any wariness of working with planned giving professionals, it revolves around those two issues. So how might they welcome collaboration? What kinds of ways do they think would be most useful to them? The top answers from the longer list that we showed to them was that a majority said it would be very valuable to be able to show their client that they are working as a team to formalize the planned gift, that they were willing to go and seek extra help, extra counsel. They thought that positioned them well with their client. And 51% say it would be very valuable to them to raise awareness of estate planning. And that's a little bit of a wish for their own business, which is that more people who are aware of estate planning, the more likely they are to need an estate planner, which is what their expertise is in. But they consider that very valuable. It just gives you a little bit of thought about how do you approach someone about how you might collaborate, and that there's a shared goal of raising awareness of estate planning. Obviously, nonprofits benefit if there's more people who are engaged in estate planning, if those estate planners are raising the topic of planned giving. And so there's a mutual benefit that way, and this graph really shows that they are open to it and would consider such a collaboration valuable. So what specific activities do they think would provide a business advantage to them? They are willing and want to work cooperatively with local nonprofits so they're better able to educate their donors on estate planning. That was the most popular answer of the things that we presented, 71%. And given that they indicate to us that their knowledge about why donors want to put a planned gift in place, this is a really nice thing to pop to the top, because this is something that nonprofits can be the expert on why donors give, and to help that planned giving profession, help the financial planner do a better job of educating their donors about that. Also, a majority say they would find benefit in hosting a session on estate planning with a room full of nonprofits' most valued supporters. They might be thinking that there's business for them to be had in that room. But they also welcome one-on-one meetings with planned giving professionals who work for nonprofits, just forging those relationships. And remember that relationships are the most important source of technical information for them. So they want this to be a people thing more than other things. The fewer, you can see 39% say that they want an update about what's happening with nonprofits. Some of the technical things are a little less interesting than some of the people things. So I think that gives you a little bit of a view into this population, how they think about planned giving, how they're transacting planned gifts now, who they serve, what they think their clients want. I'm going to turn it over to Nathan now to give you some recommendations from Stelter.
Well, thank you, Ann. And as you just saw there, obviously, some examples of activities that are currently happening that nonprofits are doing, and maybe some of the perception of the value that the advisor community has. So we'll take a chance to, if you're familiar with any of the other Stelter research studies, to look at some recommendations. Hopefully you've been able to take away some items already, but about 6 things that we've identified that we want to bring to your attention. The first of which is when you're looking to collaborate and network and work with the folks in the advisory community, look for folks that look like that high producer profile. The NAPC website is one place definitely to start. But again, looking for those folks who are planned giving friendly. They actually have worked on gifts like this, have done this themselves, and that they relate to nonprofits, both personally and professionally. Perhaps they've served on a board or been included in those conversations with the nonprofit community. But I also want to look at those that are highly experienced. As you saw with the high producer profile, those who have built a portfolio and had experience with clients and gifts like this throughout their career. And so one thing really to kind of look at is looking at the quality of those relationships and communication with those folks versus quantity. When we first rolled this study out, had a couple individuals that shared ideas with us that they had already started incorporating a university down in Texas, looking at utilizing LinkedIn as far as that as a tool to build a community of folks that he was looking to collaborate with within their university. Obviously, personal letters and things along those lines are good as well, but you're wanting to look really more at the quality, kind of using the 80-20 principle, where 20% of those advisors that you're currently working with are going to bring you 80% of your qualified leads and donors. Looking again at spending some time with those audiences instead of having such a wide net per se. Another thing that's really been kind of a shift that we've seen, and we had anecdotally seen this for a while, but what the advisors and what this research study showed and validated, was that they're not necessarily looking to the nonprofit sector to be the technicians, to be the technical resource. They are looking, as Ann stated, to their peers. They're looking with the professional colleagues. And that was something even back in 2008, as I mentioned at the beginning of our presentation with Jeff Comfort in his presentation. We had seen some changes as well, and even as a company, we had provided resources and tools to our client base where we had newsletters or email services that went out to the advisory community to keep them abreast of ideas and plan giving and technically what was changing or happening. And we had seen that wasn't necessarily working, wasn't resonating. And so looking at, what does that look like? What does communication, or how do we engage with these folks, and what do we share with them? Really emphasizing accountability. How are you being good stewards of the dollars that are being left to you? So they have some of that peace of mind when they're talking to their clients, your potential donors, that you'll do the same. Transparency. making sure there's a line of sight, obviously, in philanthropy as a whole, but most definitely in planned giving, having that transparency of where the dollars are going. And even one of our clients brought up to us at the National Planned Giving Conference in Minneapolis a couple of weeks ago when we first revealed this research, providing even some of those advisors you're engaging with some of the research that's come out, even some of the donor research Stelter has done, or Campbell and Company, some of the other firms, on what are some of those perceptions and what are those things that donors are telling us. Another thing is that actually we're very fortunate at Stelter to have an amazing technical advisory board, and Phil Purcell, who's a previous board chair at the PPP, or National Community Planned Giving, and also at Ball State, brought up this idea that this actually now lends support that planned gifts could be recognized as part of a campaign. So really, nothing more here than just to consider this as you are in a campaign or looking to go into one, that planned gifts may indeed play a part in that. I'm also looking at that privacy. As Ann stated, one of the big resounding things that came out from the advisor side and from their words is, from a collaboration or lack thereof to date, is concern around privacy or confidentiality. And actually that was something in our 2009 donor study that came out of the one reason that individuals hadn't shared their intentions with us either. So we're hearing it not only from the donor side, but also from the advisor community. And so one of the ideas here is, really creating and being more proactive in sharing the policies you have as an institution around donor privacy and donor confidentiality, to build trust not only with your donor population, but also with those advisors that you're looking at networking and collaborating with more, and to give them, that peace of mind when they are having those opportunities and those conversations with clients and your potential donors, that it's okay to bring up their name. You're going to keep their best intentions in mind. And again, this validated some of the things we'd seen with our donor studies, but nice to hear and see from the advisor side of the world that planned giving is not just for the wealthiest. This probably isn't news to anybody on the line, but this really does ring true, that this is obviously being asset-based, an opportunity that is not only for the highest percentage of the population and folks that may typically be stereotyped as planned gift prospects, but for a larger audience and for a larger pool of prospects within your institution based on their engagement and their loyalty with you. And finally, one thing that the advisors have shared with us is once you're in, you're in. Very few individuals will remove you from their plans, and so there's less risk to start and connect and have those conversations with donors at a younger age. And this was similar to what we heard from the donor community back in 2008, where only 7% had removed a charity from their plans. So where resources allow, by no way are we advocating and saying, email everybody 30 years of age and older, or send print to everybody 30 or 40 years of age and older. But where resources allow, cultivate those younger donors. Look at opportunities to piggyback on things you're already doing. Look at opportunities that are more cost-effective via web, social, and email to start planting those seeds and build those relationships and line of communication with folks that may typically not have heard about these things from you in the past. So I hope you've been able to take away a variety of things. Ann and I are happy to entertain some questions, and I'll turn it over to Jen to navigate that.
Sure. Actually, Nathan, while we take a little break, I'm going to have you switch out your headset. We had some people that were having problems understanding you, so if you just want to switch that out real quick. We did get some questions coming in, so let's just read through those a little bit. Ann, I think there's a couple in there that you might be able to take.
Yeah, there's a question about how the survey defined planned giving. And to be clear about the audience that we surveyed and what the topic of this was, we were talking to accredited estate planners, people who had earned that credential. So these are people who are legal and financial experts in estate planning. We wanted to find out how they talked about planned gifts, because the nonprofit community has one way of talking about it, but people might have others. So we offered them a list of possible things that they might words, phrases that they might use, including charitable gifts, planned giving, charitable planning, charitable giving, deferred giving, legacy planning, and indicated to them that regardless of whatever word they used, we were going to be talking to all of these things as coming under the umbrella of planned giving or planned gifts. So there was another question about whether people lump estate planning into planned giving, or was that thought about separately in this question. The people we talked to were estate planners. The subject of our survey was about planned giving, although we obviously asked about some of their estate planning experience as well. So I don't think, the question was, do you think people lump estate planning into planned giving? And my answer is no. We made sure that we were perfectly clear.
I also see a question, and hopefully this headset works a little better, but I also see a question on, does Stelter have a guide now for nonprofits on how to best approach advisors? We don't currently, but obviously with this just being hot off the press, is looking at what are the best ways. Anecdotally, some of the things we've seen successful are including advisors on material you're already sending out that do show the cause and effect of the dollars and how those donations are having an impact. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the transparency and accountability using simple things that may already be available in your annual report around where the dollars are going. And again, making sure they understand that you are being good stewards of those gifts, and so they can have some confidence when having those conversations.
I'll just take a question here about what was the threshold that defines very wealthy. And I'm guessing this was the slide that said, for whom is planned giving appropriate? And that a very small segment said only the very wealthy. And that was the phrasing that we used exactly in this survey. We're really trying to get to an attitude of how they are, whether they are sort of limiting conversations that they might have about planned giving to only their wealthiest clients. So it's more of an attitude than it was that we needed a benchmark about that. So I hope that helps.
We do have a couple of questions coming in concerning the slides and whether you guys are going to have access to those. And I just wanted to let you know you will have access to those. We will have them on our website come Monday, and I'll give you some more information about that here at the end of the presentation. We have a couple more questions coming in. I'll let Nathan answer one.
Yeah, I had a couple other questions here around actually folks who have used this in the past, and do we have newsletters or tools to actually stay in front of folks. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we had things targeted towards the advisor community. Didn't see that from a technical standpoint of value from a resource. Everything's limited in the nonprofit space from a time, resource, and dollar standpoint. But again, anecdotally, what we've seen successful is including them on that donor communication that does share those stories, and perhaps even doing something simple as switching out a cover letter to talk exactly or directly to that advisor or that group of advisors that you're engaging with.
Okay, we'll leave it open just for a few more minutes so Anna and Nate can look through these and maybe address a couple of them.
Well, there's a quick question with a quick answer. There's a quick question with a quick answer, so I'll take care of that one. Did the research identify donor concern about outliving their money as a reason for avoiding making a planned gift or doing estate planning? No, the research did not identify that. That wasn't on our list, and we worked with people who were intimately involved with these accredited estate planners, and so that didn't come up in our the research that we did in putting this together. And I'll take the next one there, Nathan, which is what's the difference between AEP and a CFP? AEP stands for Accredited Estate Planner, and it's a designation that only 1,700 people have across the country. They had to earn that through a variety of steps. A CFP, a Certified Financial Planner, is one of the kinds of people who might become an accredited estate planner. Not all accredited estate planners are certified financial planners, but there are some who are in that group.
And there's a couple questions that have actually popped up here around thoughts around engaging advisors as a group, or whether that's part of the Professional Advisors Council or committee. We've seen this kind of ebb and flow throughout the years, and it kind of does depend on the size and type of organization and how engaged those advisors are and what the responsibilities are when that group is created. We've seen in some situations groups that, unfortunately, because of lack of accountability or understanding of what their role is, kind of fail, unfortunately. But if there are organizations, or if you are looking at doing that, looking at, again, a quality of membership, not looking at making this a list of 200 or 400 or 500 folks, depending on the size of your institution, but a list of folks that really there's an understanding of what their role is as part of this group and how they can play a part in advancing or supporting the efforts of your plan giving efforts. There's a question also here around how do we find out who is an AEP in our area. I mentioned earlier the NAEPC website, naepc.org, I believe, is their website. You can search around a zip code on where advisors are in your community. And then another question here that I'll address, and then see if there's any more that pop up around. Are we suggesting that Stelter's publications include donor stories as well as advisor stories? Not necessarily. Again, advisors, and from what they've shared with us, from what they look to the philanthropic community to share with them, is that they again are doing good work with these dollars. There's a lot more emphasis, both from the donor community as well as the advisor side, to show how we're handling those dollars and making sure that we are doing what we say we do. So what we're saying as far as including advisors in those donor publications is including those on the mailing list, but maybe drawing attention and talking to them a little bit differently with a cover letter or something that's more cost effective instead of doing a different publication just for those folks.
Nathan had just mentioned a website that you could go to see the AEPs, which I believe you said was naepc.org. Is that right, Nathan? And that's the National Accredited Estate Planning Council. And that's who we worked with when we conducted this research. They were a partner with us to give us access to their universe of estate planners.
And there's another question here that I'll just address quickly around religious organizations working with advisors, and I think this applies outside of religious organizations as well, in a way that doesn't have it appear they're giving access to all our parishioners or donors or data file. That's a big concern of a lot of organizations, and something that I think everybody, when looking at whether it's bringing somebody in for a seminar or introducing those, that you need to vet, and you need to vet very carefully. Because at the end of the day, and you heard this from the advisors, there can be some hesitancy to opening up their door to introduce you to their clients and vice versa. We need to make sure if we are looking at networking with local advisors that we've done our proper vetting to make sure if we have a list of those folks that we have confidence that we can introduce them where appropriate to those folks that are near and dear to our organization.
Okay, I think we'll move on now and wrap things up. Thank you so much for sending in your questions. If you have any other questions that you think of after the presentation, you can certainly contact us. As I noted before, we will be posting the recording today along with the handouts on our website, and right there you can see the URL where it will be located. We also have a comprehensive report, research report that covers all of this information and more, and that's also available on our website. It's actually available on the website right now if you'd like to get that before the weekend and spend your weekend reading that. It would be some good material. But I'll also put it on the webinars page as well starting Monday, and you can get all those materials. Finally, if you'd like to continue the conversation, what you've heard today, or learn more about the Stelter Company, or if you have any questions about our products or services, you can email us at stella@stelter.com. Visit us on our website, stelter.com. We also have a Facebook page. We'd love to be friends with you. Follow us on Twitter. Link in with us on LinkedIn. We'd love to get to know you better. Thanks again for joining us this afternoon, and have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.